How did Subaru die 1,000 times in 7 seconds? Well, it was actually 10 seconds, but for the meme, and because I'm very hungry, I had to fudge it a bit in the thumbnail. I'm sure you guys would understand. I hope so. What I'm about to narrate is something that isn't in the anime yet and is only in the novel. But it's told in such a way in this video that even someone who has had no contact with the franchise can understand it. First, let's talk about the star of this franchise, Subaru. He's a protagonist who provokes different opinions from those who don't watch the series. And that's because people tend to believe Subaru will have it easy due to his ability, Return by Death, which consists of him reviving at some point in the past after he dies, having the chance to redo things. This leads some people to have first impressions like these.
Si yo fuera ese idiota, iría todo... Mira, la vida le hubiera sido 1000 veces más fácil si simple y llanamente se hubiera conseguido una pastilla o una poción que lo matara al instante al ingerirlo. Y cuando vea, ok, se puso un poco difícil la cosa, me lo tomo.
Pues me aburro. ¿Qué importa si Subaru se muere? Va a revivir y no me genera nada.
Impressions that aren't bad in themselves. They're just opinions I'm using to open this video. While it sounds like everything will be easy for him when put that way, the series introduces more variables that show us things won't turn out as the viewer thinks they will. I don't want to explain too much because talking about the variables that arise would be for another video, but I can tell you, person who knows nothing about the Re:Zero franchise, that there are characters and elements who are aware that Subaru can redo things, and these people will make sure he doesn't complete his new, reformed plan. But why am I putting so much emphasis on Subaru's power right now? Since if you came to this video, you just want to know how he died 1,000 times in 10 seconds. I'm sorry to tell you that everything I've been telling you is related to the thumbnail. So pay attention. Until recently, when Subaru died, it was easy to recognize what point in the past he returned to. We could deduce he returned 2 to 3 days in time, or even hours ago. But due to a disconnection with the entity that gave him his power, now when he returns in time, he only returns to seconds before his death. In fact, on the occasion I'm narrating in this video, what happened was that upon dying and returning from death, he realized he had only gone back 10 seconds in time. Before, it was easier for Subaru to avoid accumulating so many deaths because he had days or hours to plan his next move. And he even had allies. But in the 10-second loop, he had no one from his past to depend on. And he had the bad luck of being trapped in a loop facing a very powerful enemy. A person who was considered one of the strongest warriors in the country he was in. If I had to give an example on a power scale more familiar to the average user, it's as if you locked Kid Goku in a room with Frieza's final form. Do you realize how screwed Subaru was at that moment? The good thing is that Subaru didn't need to defeat the villain. He just needed to get out of there alive. But of course, Kid Goku's speed is truly inferior to the speed of Frieza's final form, and the same goes for Subaru and his enemy in this part. The 1,000 deaths are, in short, every attempt Subaru made to escape the villain with his body whole and limbs intact. I'm not going to narrate every attempt because it's simply not possible to tell it all in 20 minutes, but I will narrate all the situations and plans Subaru made to escape this place. I also want to make it clear that Subaru is a completely normal human. Yes, he has some strength, but it's physical strength that any of us could achieve with a gym routine. The only supernatural thing he had at that moment was an ally who could teleport a few meters in any direction. But she could only do it a few times, and it's not like that's very useful against his enemy, who was a ninja who could reach high speeds in seconds. Oh well, he also had another person, a fox girl, who could rival his enemy in strength. But the enemy was much faster than her, so it was easy for the villain to simply ignore this strong ally and focus on Subaru. But let's start with the 1,000 deaths. Subaru's nightmare begins with this old ninja throwing bombs around him. Fortunately, Subaru was somewhat far from the explosions, but not far enough to escape the consequences of the impact. And since he didn't expect the impact to affect him, he could do nothing to prevent his vision from starting to turn red as a result of the explosion's pressure, which is a way of saying he started bleeding from that side. Besides, he isn't aware of it. But we are told his other eye had come out of its socket and was only held to him by a few nerves that managed to resist the detonation. He didn't realize it because of the pain, but at this same moment, his teleporting companion made a maneuver to help the fox girl but only ended up being decapitated by the ninja. The series is very crude in telling us how this ninja mocks her, saying that nothing was left above the child's neck. His other ally, the girl with fox ears, tried to heal him through a forbidden technique that worked based on feelings. But for that, she needed Subaru to love her. But the protagonist already had a girl he loved, which is why he couldn't return the affection. And while she was trying to save Subaru, the ninja came and, taking advantage of the girl's carelessness, decapitates the small child with one blow. The narration of his first death ends with Subaru describing how he sees his head roll across the rooftop and more, he sees it moving away from his body. Yes, it's what you're thinking. Subaru's head was simply falling and falling off the roof until it fell into the void. And just like that, his first death would end. I hadn't said it, but the protagonist was at the top of a building at that moment. And that's how his first death would end. When Subaru returned from death, he realized he had only gone back a few seconds in time, exactly to the moment when the ninja started throwing the bombs. When he thinks back on that event, the work tells us how every return by death Subaru has begun with the following words spoken by the ninja to the fox girl. "I've heard that the people of this town and you are exceptionally tough, but are you tougher than the people of my town?" 1,000 times Subaru would hear that phrase. 1,000 times he felt endless pain from the explosion and his deaths, but he still couldn't get used to how his body would be flooded with pain, only to then die and feel the pain disappear just as it came. Now in the second loop, although his body had healed, his mind had not. And that's why he goes crazy and starts crying in pain. He cried for everything he couldn't cry in his first death. And the ninja, tired of his whining, throws a bomb at him. The last thing Subaru saw before dying was a sudden red light. At least this time, the death and pain were instantaneous. I'd like to say the third attempt was better, that Subaru pulled himself together and made some progress, but it wasn't like that. And that's because, for the first time, Subaru was dealing with a situation where his return by death ability gave him such a short return point that it was just seconds he could count on his fingers. And while he cursed his luck and thought about the injustice he was dealt, another bomb fell next to him, and then he felt the whole world turn red again. Subaru has died. He hears the ninja's words again, those words about the toughness of the city's inhabitants. But instantly he sees the world stained red again. He knows what happened. He knows there's a bomb. He knows this bomb will explode near him and will screw up his body. But even though he knows, he has very little time to react to all this. His human reflexes are simply insufficient. Despite seeing everything through a red filter, he tries by all means to stay alive. Even though he knows he's going to die, he wants to get a better look at the surroundings, the environment. He wants to form a plan so his next attempt will be the last, because he's already resigned to dying in this attempt. But he can't, because the red vision clouding his sight doesn't let him see the place clearly, and the pain from the explosion is so great that it doesn't let him think clearly either. On a personal note, I'll tell you that I once had a toothache so bad it didn't let me sleep all night. Now think about how Subaru felt with his whole body messed up and with the inevitable decapitation. Remember how I said people often say Subaru has it easy because he just has to go back in time and try again after dying? I think people forget the fact that Subaru doesn't have a peaceful death, and his save point isn't like in a video game where you save at a safe spot. Rather, it's a point he doesn't control, like the example in this video. Now imagine if the save point is at a moment where he can no longer save someone important to him. The curious thing is that in the canon, this has already happened several times, but that's not something to be narrated on this occasion. Let's continue with the fifth attempt, the fifth of 1,000 attempts. Something I couldn't comment on until now is that in Subaru's first loop, he remembered hearing somewhere in his original world that in an explosion, the best thing to do is close your eyes, scream with all your might, and duck down with your hands on your head. This way, the pressure can be better absorbed by his body, and maybe he can avoid staining his vision red. In fact, this is what he tried to do in the previous loop, but he didn't have a fast enough reaction. However, now in this loop, as soon as the pain left his body and he heard the ninja's words, he tried it. And fortunately, he managed it. But not everything was rosy. We are told he ended up half deaf and with a sore throat from all the screaming. He didn't care, because those minor discomforts are preferable to the great pains of his first loops. But now that he could finally see the surroundings clearly, he could see what the second bomb that killed him was. Remember I told you the old man was fighting a fox girl ally of Subaru's? It turns out that as soon as the ninja realized he wasn't going to get rid of the fox girl easily, he decided to make her lower her guard by attacking the protagonist. That is, he took advantage of the girl's good heart. So in that moment of carelessness, where Subaru sees the ninja throw the second bomb that finished him in other loops, even though the girl next to him tried to help him and tried to repel the bomb by kicking it, it wasn't enough, as it exploded before she could kick it away. And once again, Subaru died. I'd like to narrate the sixth loop, but this is where the text starts to get weird because there's a sudden cut in the narration. However, the next time the story resumes, it's mentioned that Subaru has reached this exact point on several occasions, although it's never specified how many times he has done it or how many attempts it took him, but we do know he died again. In fact, there are moments in the story where we see words repeating, and the way these words repeat follows an order: pain, red, fear, why, death. Personally, I have a belief that each repeating sequence of these 5 words is an indication that Subaru is dying trying to get out of the crossroads he's in. It's never clarified how many loops passed, but in one loop, they tell us he managed to escape both explosions, and he did it without his eyes being covered in red, only for him to start celebrating having survived, and the ninja throws a dozen kunai at him. Poor Subaru can't catch a small break. Then, after many attempts, when he repeats the feat of surviving both bombs, he decides not to celebrate and to teleport to the floor below with his companion's ability, only to hear explosions starting to go off everywhere up top, and then see the ninja descend. The little girl tries to stop him, but the villain has no mercy and cuts off her leg. Subaru tries to help the little girl, but he can do nothing. And then, the old man with a kunai in hand decapitates him. But he doesn't decapitate him completely, just enough so that some skin is left holding his head, and the weight of the almost severed head makes it fall off on its own. Subaru feels his head fall between his own legs. There's a good piece of fan art that portrays this moment, but it's very graphic, so I'll put it up censored. But if you want to see it in full, I'll upload it to my Twitter profile on the day this video is released. After this, it's not known how many loops passed, but it is known that Subaru had to repeat dozens more loops just to get another chance to dodge the shurikens. But even if he got the chance, it didn't mean he would manage to avoid them. In fact, we are told that he had lost count of how many times he had tried to dodge the kunai, although they do emphasize that in certain loops, the fox girl managed to stop the kunai, but this also left her vulnerable to the ninja. So in another loop, he asks this ally to please not help him, and manages to escape the shurikens on his own by teleporting to another part of the rooftop he was on, because he knows that if he goes down the building again, he will only find his death. He learned that the hard way hundreds of times. It is now that the ninja gets distracted and takes a good hit from the fox girl. Subaru had finally achieved a new variable. The blow seems to have affected the old ninja, but in reality, it only made him more reckless. Because his arm started bleeding and he could no longer use it, the shinobi decided to cut off his own damn arm and throw it at his enemy, who, stunned, didn't know whether to kick the arm back or dodge it, only to realize that while all this was happening, a bomb fell at her feet. The fox girl is a superhuman, so she was able to survive this trick. What she didn't count on was that this wouldn't be the only bomb the ninja would throw at her. In fact, in the hand that was thrown at her and she didn't dodge, there were more explosives, and as she was processing all this, the bomb exploded. Now that the fox girl is injured, the ninja goes for Subaru. The protagonist tries to use his companion's teleport, but it's useless. The ninja only needed to see his technique once to be able to deduce where he is going to appear. So, as soon as the protagonist teleported, his surprise was great when he realized he was received with the explosion of a bomb that couldn't kill a superhuman like the fox girl, but could kill 2 small children. Subaru returned from death again and automatically did the things he had to do. Scream, roll, curl up, but while doing all that, he stopped. What now? That's what he wondered. Even if he dodged everything, the old man was very versatile when it came to ways of killing. He couldn't find a way to survive. And even though the little girl by his side was hugging him tightly to encourage him, he did nothing but stand there while the second bomb approached to end his life. Again. The text gets crazy again and doesn't tell us he has revived again, but rather narrates more attempts by Subaru. He tells us he has died by decapitation again. And he also tells us he has died from the explosion again. He is tired of dodging everything correctly only to meet death again. The only thing keeping him sane is the warmth coming from the girl who accompanies him and holds his hand until the end of his last seconds of life. The text continues. We don't know how much time has passed, but we again hear the ninja's voice about the toughness of the inhabitants' bodies. Subaru tries to survive, tries to find new ways, but he can't find a way out. Then, little by little, he begins to resign himself and to think about how he ended up in this situation. If only his power had allowed him to go back a few more seconds in time. Maybe not 10 seconds, but 15 or 20 seconds. He probably could have found another way to avoid all this. Subaru starts to get depressed, thinking he's in a no-win loop. But the girl's hand continues to give him strength, although it's not enough. Then, Subaru remembers the other motives he holds in his heart, his friends. He begins to imagine how his companions could have helped him in this situation.
それも多分すごく間違ってる。夜菜も無事じゃなきゃダメ。もっといい方法があるはずです。
考えんのをやめんじゃねえぜ。
バカね。
ここで諦めるなんて冗談じゃないね。
必ず大丈夫ですわよ。みんながついてるもん。もう会いたいのも辛いのも嫌でしょ。リアのところに帰るんでしょ。それを見つけ出すかしら。それが勝利の鍵なのよ。
He pictures how each one could have pitched in to get him out of the mess he's in. But the catch is, this is all narrated while we hear the explosions and the dialogue between the ninja and the fox girl in the background. In other words, while Subaru is thinking about all his friends, he is still dying. After remembering everyone and feeling the warmth of the girl he was with, he made a decision and decides he is going to extend this 10-second loop to at least 11 seconds. But how did Subaru end up in this place? Sorry if I'm cutting the narration. However, it's important to remember how Subaru ended up here because that will be the way he gets out. The ninja is an old man who is in his last years of life and has a particular wish. Subaru has information that can help him achieve that wish, but since he was going to be killed, he proposes a deal to the old man in exchange for that information. They both promise not to break the rules of the game, but before reaching this 10-second loop, it turns out the old man had broken the rules, and Subaru had also broken them by getting the fox girl as an ally. That's why the old man, whose name is Olbart and nickname is Vicious Old Man, started freely killing Subaru because the rules against homicide had already been lifted. But at no point was it said that the game had ended. Their bet was still on, and there was still no winner. Olbart didn't know Subaru's abilities, and the protagonist initially didn't know the old man's either. But after so many deaths, he knew exactly what he was up against. What did Subaru need to win the game according to what he agreed with the old man? Simple, he had to catch the old man in motion as if it were a kind of game called tag. There was also another condition, but that's a lot of lore. In the final successful loop, he realized something. Even though they both cheated, they never officially called off the game. The bet was still on. So, knowing Olbart's egocentric personality, that he only listens to himself, he decided to make a risky move after remembering his friends and feeling the support and touch of Rui once more. Taking advantage of the fact that the enemy doesn't know he has the teleport ability, he waits patiently for a moment. For a moment where he knows that for 1 second, Olbart will lower his guard as a result of the fox girl's attack, and it's there that he points Rui to the place where she should teleport. Instantly, Subaru appears and falls on top of Olbart, and while the old man tried to get him off, Subaru just exclaims between tears that he won, that Olbart and Yorna lost. The old man didn't know what he was referring to because he had already forgotten about the bet. But after hearing the boy's words, he remembers that he regretted having stopped the game for this unforeseen event, and he may be a bastard and a scoundrel, but never a sore loser. So, recognizing the boy's guts, he decides to grant him the victory. This illustration from the novel depicts this unique moment, and while I'd like to say everything turned out well for Subaru after, I'm sorry to tell you that's not what happened. After Subaru wins, Olbart agrees to return him to his original appearance. Since, yes, he's an adult, not a child, but the moment the old man places a hand on his body to lift the spell, shadows erupt, engulfing the entire building and then the city. Olbart, who doesn't like getting his hands dirty with things that aren't his problem, abandons the city, leaving Subaru, Yorna, and Rui to their fate. But that's a story for another video. Thanks for reaching this part. The truth is that this is the first video of this style I made on my main channel. Since at that time, on July 31st, 2024, I had a different writing style. Well, you'll surely notice something different from my latest scripts. In any case, I hope you liked it, and I also hope that you'll soon be able to see the other videos I'll be translating. As I always say, a like and a comment help the channel like you have no idea, so tell me, what did you think of the 10-second loop?